Hello. Elon Musk officially reinstated Donald Trump, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Kanye West, and more. Let's discuss. Welcome to the Forge and Anvil podcast, where we hammer out uncomfortable conversations about culture and politics to sharpen ourselves for the race set before us. My name is Connor, and I'm host of this podcast. If you'd like to support the show, feel free to go to forgeandanvil.locals.com. We appreciate your support. Joining me today is regular guest of the show, Michael Aper. Michael, say hi.
Hi, friends. My name is Michael Aper. I'm a student of Scripture, and I really just want to help change the world for righteousness for the sake of the kingdom of God.
Excellent. And back again is also regular guest, Zach of All Music.
It's me, Zach, and I'm back. Singer-songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire. Can be found on Instagram. Just released a new album. I'm live streaming on YouTube Tuesday nights. Check it out.
Awesome. All righty, everyone. Let's get into this. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little excerpt from an article posted from the Daily Wire. Leftists raged Saturday evening after Twitter CEO Elon Musk reinstated former President Donald Trump's Twitter account, despite Trump repeatedly stating that he would not use the platform again. The announcement from Musk comes after more than 15 million people voted in a non-scientific poll that he posted to his Twitter, asking if Trump should be reinstated. The result of the poll showed that 51.8% said yes, while 48.2% said no. So apparently we lost Michael for a moment there, but Zach, what's your initial reaction?
Oh, he's back. There he is. So I mean, my initial reaction is that I can't imagine anything I care less about. But that's not really a good answer. No, I mean, was anybody really surprised by this? I was of the opinion that like Elon Musk was already kind of like leaning the direction of reinstating Trump anyways, regardless of the direction that the poll went, unless it was like obviously skewed that people didn't want him back. And I read today that I guess Donald Trump still doesn't really have an interest in coming back to Twitter. So like he's technically reinstated, but the question of will he like continue to use Twitter or just stick with the Truth Social remains unseen, and I don't really have a prediction. I would be surprised if he went back to Twitter and like it was the way it was before he got banned. But yeah.
Well, Michael, we'll go to you since we lost you for a moment, but I'm not sure how much you might have missed out on. But basically, the short gist of it is Elon Musk put out a poll. The poll, he had people vote on Twitter. 51.8% said yes to reinstating Trump. 48.2% said no. So Elon went ahead and reinstated Trump.
Yeah. I don't see why not. The thing is with the social media platforms, the people who are in charge of those social media platforms are certainly within their right to ban or allow anyone they please. The problem that we have in our social media environment is that a lot of it has been monopolized, and that creates an environment where the public forum, even though social media technically isn't a public forum, but some people can be banned, some people cannot. I prefer that people would not be banned and just have the public choose who they want to listen to, and hopefully people have enough brain cells bouncing between their ears that they could actually discern whether what someone is saying is worthwhile or not. But absolutely, Trump should not have been banned. I don't think that's appropriate, as well as other entities like a variety of other individuals that I'm sure we'll talk about that have been banned and now are being reinstated by Elon Musk. I don't really care what this says about Trump. I don't care what this says about Elon Musk. The fact of the matter is, now Twitter is a more viable resource because people are allowed to say what they want, and the repercussions should be social, not dictated by the mandates of the company itself. But Twitter is perfectly within their rights to ban whoever they please, and so is the metaverse, between Instagram, Facebook, YouTube's becoming assimilated into that as well, slowly and surely. But yeah, ultimately I love that Trump doesn't care. I think that's the best response he can have. Whether you're pro Trump or against Trump, it's good news that he just doesn't care, because Lord knows we shouldn't care either.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Trump is contractually obligated to post on Truth Social. I don't know, obviously, what those actual agreements look like, but I'm assuming it has to do with at least he's supposed to post on Truth Social first, no matter what, because he's basically carrying that platform. Now, that being said, it'll be interesting to see if he decides to use Twitter, because I don't remember what his exact follower count was. In fact, I'll look it up really quick. But I do know that he has way more followers on Twitter than he does on Truth Social, and part of that's just because it's an app that's been around for a decade longer. But either way, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, now that he has announced that he is in fact running for the 2024 nomination, whether or not he is going to be able to resist Twitter, given that, yeah, that's right, 87.5 million followers that Trump has on Twitter. And on Truth Social, he has, let me just double check this just for comparison's sake. He has 4.6 million. So just a slight deviation there in the amount of followers. And honestly, I do think if he wants to run in 2024, he should get on Twitter. I mean, honestly, it would just be a waste of a giant megaphone.
That's right.
They'll probably have to post on a Truth Social first. That's my guess of what the contract looks like that he has with Truth Social. But either way, I think he needs to be occupying that space if he wants to win. I think that's a lot of what propelled him into the office in 2016, like it or not, whether you're a Trump supporter or not. I really think that his ability to quickly communicate with his base directly like that is a lot of what pushed him into the White House. And I think that's a lot of what hurt him in 2020s. I think there's a lot more censorship was ramped up by that point, even though he was still on Twitter. I do think that there was a lot more shadow banning and things like that, terms that we had never heard of hardly during 2016 that became very familiar going forward. So now, that being said, there are a lot of other people that have also been unbanned. One of them, Zach's probably the most opinionated on, would be Andrew Tate. So Zach, what was your reaction when you saw that?
Yeah, I found out about that today. And again, like people like that, if you just ignore them, they go away. The most concern, the grave concern about him is the human trafficking and the fact that he has the attention of a lot of young people, especially a lot of young men who are vulnerable. I don't think his message is a particularly healthy message for young men.
And I definitely think that there's some things I take issue with for sure. So, I mean, are you of the mindset of he shouldn't be banned, or do you feel like in your mind is a net positive that he's been unbanned?
I don't think it's a positive or a negative. I mean, it's why was he banned would be my question. That's because, like Michael correctly pointed out, it is within Twitter's purview to ban or unban whoever they want to. My issue with banning is it doesn't seem to be applied consistently, like at all. Specifically on Twitter, it seems to have the biggest problem with it. It's always under the vague notion of they violated the terms and services. And like for Donald Trump and Andrew Tate, like I'm not unwilling to believe that they didn't somehow violate the terms of service, but what specifically did they violate? Like, what verbatim or something like that violated a specific policy? Because as time goes on, the more strictly, consumers are watching these platforms, as well as governing bodies and things like that. So the more, like, I guess, black and white your terms of service need to be. What exactly is hate speech? What does it look like to violate that? And so on and so forth. So again, same with Donald Trump. I'm not exactly sure what part of the policy was violated with that. And in the case of Donald Trump, I suspect that was more politically motivated than any violation of the agreement you sign up for when you agree to have a Twitter account.
Yeah, unfortunately, I really think that the vast majority, if not all, of the censorship really is politically motivated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there obviously is a spectrum of political opinions that have gotten some brunt of censorship. When I say a spectrum, though, it typically falls under libertarian, non-establishment type voices. So, there might be some disagreement and factions among that pool, but either way, it does tend to be the right side of the aisle or the more independent left-leaning thinkers that are getting the censorship, which is really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys hear much about the story from The Intercept?
Mm-mm.
So that was a major story. You probably heard of it, just maybe didn't know its source was The Intercept. But they broke a massive story a couple weeks ago. It was actually while we had pre-recorded some stuff because we were on break, which is unfortunate because it was a really huge story, which is the access that the federal government had to Twitter for censorship purposes. Specifically, The Intercept, which is actually a left-leaning news site, had broken the story about how not only everyone suspected that the federal government has some involvement in social media censorship. But this story from The Intercept, it showed that not only was there suspicion for that, but they actually came out with solid proof. They showed text messages between people like Vijaya Gadde, who was actually on the Joe Rogan podcast along with Tim Pool and Jack Dorsey, talking about how they don't discriminate in their censorship and things like that. And I mean, she basically, there was actual text of her talking back and forth with federal agents about what to censor, when to censor. And it was so colluded that there's actually a portal for, I believe it's the DHS, to log in and request specific censorship to happen. And I don't remember if that one was Twitter or Facebook or both, but either way, I think that one was Twitter. I could be wrong, so someone feel free to fact check me. But either way, there was an actual portal set up where a federal agent from the DHS could log in and request a specific thing to be taken down. So that was like the most solid, blatant proof of actual cooperation between the federal government and a big tech with actively bring individual voices that the federal government deemed to be unnecessary. So that was incredible to actually see that come out, and that story broke, and that was basically the top story for that whole week of how it's happening. To be honest, I'm surprised how quickly it's been memory hold in a way. Now, that being said, I would say that that's literal fascism. I mean, when you look at the more traditional definitions of fascism, it's usually a private and a public joining together of both the offices of a federal government or a government of any kind, really, with the private heads of and CEOs of businesses and corporations joining together in unity to actually squash out dissent. So that's incredible to see that is happening. But now under Elon Musk, that's where a lot of these things are starting to backpedal. So we have voices like one of Michael's favorites, or I should say someone he's more familiar with, Jordan Peterson, is now back on the platform as well. Did you see that, Michael?
No, actually, I'm not surprised. I would put him with the list of people who would have been reinstated.
Yeah. And the only thing that I find interesting, though, is Alex Jones. Elon Musk has officially said that he is a no for bringing back Alex Jones. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm of the opinion that it kind of shows Elon Musk isn't the free speech absolutist that he claims he is, because he's very clearly choosing based on how he feels. And that's exactly one of the things that he complained about Twitter for doing, and a lot of people, myself included, complained about Twitter doing in the first place, because there's a lot of people that did get unbanned, as we've talked about already, but there's some people that I feel like got banned or unrightful as well and didn't get reinstated. Like the podcaster Ethan Klein, who got banned on Twitter for just impersonating Elon Musk. A lot of people got banned for that. Some of it was satire, some of it was them like people actually like trying to take shots at Elon Musk. But if you're a free speech absolutist, like you're willing to take that heat, in my opinion.
Yeah. The only thing that I think was different in that situation, and I don't know the full details of it, but I do believe that Elon Musk basically put out the rules before a lot of those people were actually censored. Because I think Kathy Griffin, I think is her name, she also was censored for that same thing. Excuse me. I think she's brought back now at this point, though. I don't know about Ethan Klein, but I don't know. It's really interesting because I will say Ethan Klein has said a lot more
at worse, a
lot worse things. Like he straight up said that he hopes if another Holocaust comes, he hopes that Ben Shapiro is the first to go. Like horrible, awful stuff that you could just never say. That actually is a lot more like, wow. I mean, they want to pin inciting violence on Alex Jones, like asking questions, but they don't want to pin that on Ethan Klein saying that he hopes Ben Shapiro goes first in the next Holocaust. I mean, I don't think that either should be pinned. Like, that shouldn't be pinned on either individual, but one's much more inflammatory, in my opinion. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And well, I mean, it gets defended as it being satire, right, and comedy, where Alex Jones, that line, if you're not familiar with Alex Jones, like unfortunately, like that line is impossible to find with him on like where he's being serious. And where he actually like thinks what he's saying is true, right?
Yeah. It's hard to tell when he's acting and when he actually truly believes it, and that's where I think people are confused, and he can maybe do a better job on his part.
He might not know either.
Do you know if Elon Musk, he ran the poll and kind of had an unofficial vote for Twitter users about Trump? Has he done that with anyone else?
He has done polls about other things, but I don't think he's done any other censorship.
Okay.
I think, to be honest, I think a lot of his reasons for doing it with just Donald Trump alone is because of, I think he believes that people will leave over Trump on the left wing, which might be true, but at the same time, I think that he's going to bring back a lot of people on the right wing if Trump was to actually actively be on Twitter again, because I think that there's a lot of people that, again, like we talked about, and when I say right, I'm also including the non-establishment characters, I should say, whether that be socially a little bit left leaning or not, like so many of the others that I've kind of woken up to some of this, like the Jimmy Dores and the Tim Pools and the Tulsi Gabbards. That's the side of the aisle or the ideology or lack thereof that tends to get squashed the most. And I think a lot of those people left the platform. So I think Musk was slightly, honestly, just looking at it from a business standpoint of, is this going to drive more traffic, or is this going to, hurt the company more than it's worth? And I think the answer is that it's going to help the company much more, because at the end of the day, we've kind of, the right has even proven that people want to go where the public square is, and the right has been hanging on with the threat of censorship, whereas the left is talking about boycotting if true freedom of speech comes about. And I honestly don't think that too many of them will actually leave. There will be a percentage that will, but I think the actual news press, they're going to stay on Twitter.
No, that's how they all got popular, man. They're writing all those, writing about things like this. That's where a lot of these are, journalists, right, gain followings. So like, they can tweet, to whatever it is, 240 characters or whatever about how terrible this is, but none of them are actually going to like leave the platform. It's like how back in 2016 when Trump won the election, how like only 3 people that I know of like actually moved out of the country because of it. Like,
so many said they were going to move to Canada, and that did not materialize. And in a way, we'd be debatably less divided if a lot of those people would have moved, because instead they just stayed and continued to say, not my president. And I don't think that was helpful to the conversation. Criticize him for what you can criticize him for, but not.
But like, think about the message that would have sent, like if you actually had the stones to like move and expatriate, you know what I mean? Like, you'd actually win a lot of people over with that. Like, and
Yep.
you wouldn't look so silly, quite frankly. You
But
know,
at the
you'd
end
at
of the
least have
day-
my respect, you know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, America is not the awful place that they say, because it's the only country that everyone wants to get here and no one wants to leave, even when they say they're going to leave and when they say they hate the place.
It's also the only country where people would tolerate boring nonsense like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Now, Michael, do you feel like freedom of speech is something that should be limited in an online capacity?
This conversation honestly makes me really sad. When social media had its advent in, what was it, 2006, 2007, 2006 ish, when Facebook started to take hold. For that time and the next, we'll say, 7 or 8 years after that time, Facebook in particular, because that's where a lot of us were hanging out and using as social media, was a place of community. That's kind of how it's been advertised all this time.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of freedom of speech being infringed upon by algorithms that promote or demote specific ideological trends or bases that have a more agreeable message. I think that's really sad, because what it's becoming with things like Trump's what does he call it? The Truth Social.
Mm-hmm.
So Truth Social is now going to be, what is it? It's going to be a competitor, and then we've got I don't know, all these different social medias, which is good. It's good to have competition because it should not be a monopoly of the metaverse. And yet, what makes me really sad is that the early days of social media were so innocently stupid. They're just like, hey, everybody, look what meal I'm eating, and look what the cat video that I'm sharing. Stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, I can see all of my friends in one place, everyone who's interacting in this medium, and it's fine. And now we're put in a position where if you believe certain things, potentially you will be demoted in a social media platform. Or if you believe in certain things, you're encouraged to go to a separate social media platform. So if I want to actually engage in the community as a whole, I have to be contributing to how many social platforms. That doesn't seem conducive to unified thinking, or even, I think, opportunity for people to understand what everyone else is thinking as well.
Yeah.
Because there's always been political divides on social media. I'm not saying that didn't exist, because everyone knows Uncle Gilbert was always putting on his extremism on the right stuff and how he needs to be able to shoot guns since the early days. And Aunt Patty has always had her anti-gun stuff. I'm just making up names, of course. But now we're in a place where I don't think that any social media is truly reliable to get an understanding of how people are speaking in freedom of speech. So in a way, for me at least, social media has effectively undermined itself to be no longer valid as a source of understanding each other or promoting unity in our union and in our republic. I don't see how social media can be revived, because anytime there's a centralized entity of social media, it will inevitably fall prey to the power struggle that Twitter has and that Facebook has, and all of these that are in the mainstream. And now we have all these others that are non-mainstream that are trying to say, we promote freedom of speech, which means only Republicans use us.
Yeah.
Like, what? No, come on. That's not the answer either.
Yep.
So for me, I think social media, it should not be the source of understanding our neighbors. It should not be a place where we go to deliberate the discussions of thoughts or ideas, because the validity of that medium has been undermined. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question specifically, Connor, but when it comes to free speech, it's, in my perspective, somewhat irrelevant, because social media has undermined itself and its own validity. Will I still use it? Sure, but I'm more interested in the cat videos than I am in people's opinions, because I don't know whether those opinions are being displayed genuinely, or if other people's opinions that would be displayed genuinely are being suppressed. And I'm not saying that I think a conservative Christian being suppressed is any worse than an extreme leftist that wants all of the abortions and all of the, sexual reassignment surgeries. Like, for me, I don't care, because I'm more interested in understanding what the populace is thinking as a whole. And I feel like we are getting a really poor representation of that, no matter what aisle we're on in any issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. And unfortunately, we are creating a bunch of echo chambers. I made an account on Truth Social, mostly to see what it was, honestly. I made one on Getter, and the reason for it is, honestly, first of all, I wanted to create a Forge and Anvil social media account to start promoting podcasts, because thus far we've only been organic, nothing but occasional word of mouth. I've done like no promo to this show, and I'm proud of the little bit of growth that we've had with just doing nothing but just posting and seeing who wants to listen without even blasting us out onto the interhighways, as Zach says. But I did just this week create a Getter and a Truth Social, and to be honest, I immediately have removed Getter from my phone, because I started getting a whole bunch of, they had to have been bots. I kept getting a bunch of, it was all Chinese, and they were all having the same banner in their little profiles, and they were all like accounts of like 1 followers that were just randomly following me. Like, I had no idea how they could follow me, because I don't have any organic followers yet, but somehow they were beginning to follow me. And that was also started by an individual who supposedly is a defector from the CCP, but I don't know how you can get out of China with your money, to be honest. I don't want to throw out accusations that I can't back up. It's just something that makes me suspicious.
It's just odd.
So that, once I'm on there and I'm getting a whole bunch of bot followers that are all people that are saying like, we're the new People's Republic of China, and like every single one has that same banner. They're all accounts with like 1 follower. Like, it was weird. So I got off it. Long story short. But Truth Social, I got on, and I will say I have been pleasantly surprised by how clean it is. It actually is it's a very nice looking app. It actually is, like, in terms of just its quality, it seems like it could be a viable competitor to Twitter. Now, I'm of the mindset, like several other people on the internet have said before me, that Trump should have named it Coffee instead of Truth Social. I think that would have been way better for marketing purposes. But either way, my point is, now that I'm on these sites, they are conservative only for the most part, with the exception of maybe a few like libertarian-esque and liberal voices that are pro-free speech absolutists. But for the most part, it's just right-wing. Now, Twitter, because of the censorship, was becoming dominated by left-wing. And now that Elon Musk is back and is bringing back some more center-moderate figures on the platform, a lot of left-wing Twitter is moving to Mastodon. And there's another one that I can't remember what it's called. I was trying to look it up and I couldn't find it. But either way, there's a couple of left-wing Twitters coming out. And then you also have all these other ones like Gab, Telegram, Lines. There's just so many now that are popping up that unfortunately we are beginning to build echo chambers. And I honestly think that that's going to breed more extremism than, Uncle Dale posting about his guns on Facebook in 2008 ever used to. And it's really unfortunate to see that we are actually in some ways accelerating the division of our country. Then again, the government has its hand in it, so maybe they know what they're doing.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think about that, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, when Mike was saying, it resonated with me a lot about how social media has kind of undermined or invalidated itself. I mean, look, free speech is kind of it's a heavy burden, and my right to free speech isn't contingent on anyone else, no matter how popular or unpopular they are, or how many of them there are, or whether or not they were elected. It's a right that exists regardless of if Twitter crumbles before our very eyes here in the next coming, or in the next few months, and Truth Social takes off, or things like that. It exists, and I think echo chambers are kind of a byproduct of that, and it's easy to get sucked into those. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I kind of removed myself from Facebook and just focused on things like Instagram and YouTube and things like that. That's because I found myself on a lot of those echo chambers and things like that. And after a while, it just wasn't fulfilling. And after, just intellectually, I wasn't growing. I was just having the same 8 conversations that there's really only in libertarian echo chambers, there's like 8 conversations they have. And, at a certain point, it's great when you're first there, because then you get to learn. Yeah. You get to learn every conceivable point of view that you can possibly take, and every argument inside and out, which is remarkable because it makes you lethal in conversations outside of that echo chamber. But after a while, it kind of like runs its course, and then it's just people complaining about how much it's become an echo chamber, and really those people. And I was one of those people, and so I just decided to put my money where my mouth is and leave. Because I can still, one of the great things about being a libertarian is that you can enter a room and automatically everybody will hate you once they find out you're a libertarian. I can't tell you how much nonsense I get from my coworkers once I got outed as a libertarian. It's hilarious. Like just the other day, I mentioned in passing that, and this was not a politically motivated comment on my part. I just happened to mention how public radio is sad, and everybody just thought I was complaining about liberals, but in reality, no. It's just like, if you've listened to public radio, does anybody listen to public radio in the last, year and a half? It's sad.
No, but we're paying for it.
Yeah, but we're paying for it, and it's just like, but there's nothing. It's like you make a playlist at the beginning of the quarter, and then that's your tunes, and then you find somebody that has like an ounce of charisma, and that's your radio DJ that presses play on Spotify. It's just like, come on now. And it's the interviews aren't as interesting as they used to be. So it's just like had they asked my opinion, that was my nuanced opinion on that. Nothing to do with politics and nothing to do with liberals. Okay, it has nothing to do with conservatives. It's just the product is not good, and I'm not really getting my money's worth. But also,
reeling it in, I'm going to use that as a segue to say that I think we need to talk about solutions. The Republicans did finally, after election season ended, take back the House of Representatives by a razor-thin margin, which was disappointing, but I already have released a video giving all my thoughts on that. But I do think that they're going to be in the position to make some progress, but they're obviously not going to be able to pass legislation while they are just in control of one of the branches. But ultimately, long term, I think if in 2024, for example, more freedom-minded individuals happen to get into the majority, I do think that a lot of people have talked about revising Section 230. And individuals have also talked a lot about basically just creating legislation that would essentially turn these major social media platforms into public utilities, similar to to your electric company or to your telephone, and I think that 230 is something that they're going to have to really look into and make sure that they know what they're doing when they change the wording of that legislation, because I think that there's going to be a lot of crazy loopholes that could come about and could almost make things worse. But Michael, what is your thoughts? We'll start with you. What's your thoughts on the idea of turning those major social media companies into essentially public utilities?
It's going to be governed by someone. or some entity or whatever. It's because in order to keep a platform like that sustained, there's going to be money, and because there's employees, I presume, that are keeping those things upheld. And wherever there's money, there's opinions, and wherever there's opinions, there's agendas. And I don't know. It probably will be a part of our future, just because the way the world is going. It's less likely that people are going to be content with their limited scope of relevance in their personal lives in their hometown than it is that they want to know what's happening across the whole world. So it's kind of an inevitable thing that one fashion or another, social media will be present in some way, probably for the foreseeable future. So how that metastasizes, I have no idea.
So what you're saying is globalism is inevitable. Michael controlled opposition paper here. No.
Yeah. Globalization of thought,
Yeah.
and of exchange of thought, and I'd say even global events are more accessible than ever before. I mean, if I wanted to, I could know what happened in a small town in Greece this afternoon just because. And how ridiculous is that? Like, I don't know. That's such a wild concept that our forefathers never would have ever considered. And when I say forefathers, I mean like my actual dad and grandfather. Like,
I was thinking Aristotle, Plato.
No, we've come an amazing distance in communications and the distribution of knowledge in the past 30 years, maybe even less than that. Let's say 15, 20 years. It's ridiculous how much access we have to literally anything. And yeah, it's an astounding tool. And with that power, with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm. As the saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think that the public platform idea is probably going to be one of our best options. The public utility, just because, unfortunately, like the libertarian portion of me wants to say no, don't give any power for the government to have their hands in this. But the reality is they already do. It's just not official. And so by making it official, even though I don't like the idea of making these things public utilities in a sense where you could say that you're giving the government more control over them, but the reality is we would have the ability to at least litigate a lot more and use our rights in a way where they kind of keep hiding under this guise of Section 230, as well as I'm a public or I'm a private company, I can do what I want. They've been using that while at the same time really benefiting from government partnerships in terms of subsidies and things like that we honestly, they just operate in this gray area that they know they can operate in, where they can get away with censorship. But then they could say, oh, well, Section 230 says that, we are, a platform, not a publisher, even though censorship basically makes us become a publisher, etc. And, I think that we need to absolutely break that gray area. They either need to be public or private. And private means that they need to stop having the ability to collude and eliminate apps like Parler, for example. Parler was destroyed after January 6th, even though it's actually been proven that most of the communication between the Trump supporters, whatever your thoughts are on what happened January 6th, whatever happened, most of the communication was actually done over Facebook, not Parler, but Facebook and Amazon and Google, all these big tech platforms joined together, Apple, to collude. I mean, it was collusion. Let's just call it what it is, to ban Parler overnight, because they used that as their excuse. It was because January 6th was organized on Parler, even though it was mostly done on Facebook. But I'm preaching to the choir here a bit. But all that to say, they keep operating in this gray area of we're not, we're a private company, but then at the same time they want to take on all these benefits of, government subsidies, as well as Section 230 protections. So that's my thought. I'd love to do a deeper dive on that, but we are running low on time. So, Zach, where can people find you if they want to find more?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Zach Music. YouTube is also a great place to find me because I do occasional educational stuff there. Of course, the live streams on Tuesday night. TikTok is also a great place to find me if you do TikTok. Really, any social media platform, I'm there except for Twitter. I have some sort of presence, but mostly active on Instagram and YouTube.
Awesome. Michael, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me preparing for the last few weeks of the semester, studying Greek as always.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, we have been Forge and Anvil. Thank you so much for listening. Feel free to go to forgeandanvil.locals.com to support the show. We appreciate it. Have a good one.